evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7 o'clock main news. In tonight's headlines, His Highness the Emir receives members of the International Islamic Fiqh Academy participating in the 22nd session of the IIFA conference. The National Assembly approves a number of draft laws in its session, which witnessed swearing in of the Minister of Public Works and Minister of Electricity today. The Ministry of Interior declares that a small number of people conducted an unauthorized rally yesterday evening, contrary to its previous warnings. And the UN Resident Coordinator in Turkey praises His Highness the Emir's approval to host the third Donors Conference for the Syrian people. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at Bayan Palace His Highness Sheikh Nasser Al Mohammed Al Ahmed Al Sabah. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at Bayan Palace the Minister of Justice and Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs Yaqub Abdel Mohsen Al Sani and members of the International Islamic Fiqh Academy participating in the 22nd session of the IIFA conference currently held in Kuwait. His Highness the Emir lauded international efforts aiming to spread the real and moderate teachings of Islam that contribute to creating cohesive communities and bring up righteous generations. The meeting was attended by the Deputy Minister of Emir Diwan Affairs, Sheikh Ali Jarrah Al Sabah.
صورة الإسلام وأصبحت يعني مسوغ لدى كثير من أعداء الإسلام أن يلقوا بعداء الإسلام وأن يقولون هذا هو الإسلام، لكن الإسلام في حقيقته براء من هذه الأعمال. يعني ما يحدثه الخوارج وهو من العهد الأول في عهد الخلفاء الراشدين وخروج فتنة الخوارج إلى اليوم هي من أشد الفتن إضرارا بالمسلمين، ولذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حذر منها أشد التحذير وقال إن لقيتهم لأقتلنهم قتل عاد، هم شر الخليقة يومئذ، هم طوبى لمن قتلهم أو قتلوه. كل هذه النصوص تدل على أنهم شرهم على المسلمين عظيم، وينبغي بل يجب على المسلمين وعلى المؤسسات الشرعية ومؤسسات المجامع أن تعتني الحقيقة في تحصين الشباب ووقايتهم من هذا الفكر المنحرف الذي يضر بالأمة. والذي نرى الآن أن يعني خرجت يعني نابتة تتبنى مثل هذا الفكر الخارجي.
من المواضيع أيضا المهمة اللي طرقها المجمع وكان من أهم المواضيع موضوع الجهاد. هاي الجماعات المتطرفة اليوم تستخدم هذا المبدأ الإسلامي الأصيل الواضح في أمور منحرفة وفي غير طريقه الصحيح. فالمجمع الحقيقة وبحث بعمق هذه المسألة يوم أمس، مفهوم الجهاد، ما هو ضوابطه، ما هي غاياته، كيف يستخدم اليوم في تبرير أعمال لا علاقة لها بالدين. والحقيقة يعني كان بحث علمي عميق، ويعني ميزة هذه الدورة من المجمع لاحظت أنها فعلا أتت بقضايا معاصرة تشكل مشاكل كبيرة اليوم وانحرافات كبيرة اليوم لتصويبها ووضعها على الإطار السليم. فأنا يعني الحقيقة وجود سموك بدي أشكر رئيس الرابطة ورئيس أيضا المجمع على فعلا اختيار هذه الموضوعات اللي بتشكل فعلا اليوم إعادة تصحيح لهذه المفاهيم. وشاكرين يعني لدولة الكويت دائما هذه الرعاية وهذه العناية، وسموك يعني أمير الخير، وإن شاء الله تبقى أنت والكويت في طريق الخير باستمرار.
الإخوة الأفاضل، بعملية حماية الشباب من الوقوع في بؤر هذا الذي يقعون فيه، يعني لعله ينبغي أن يكون هنالك منهج تربوي موحد، منهج تربوي موحد لتربية أجيال المسلمين من مراحل الأساس إلى المراحل الجامعية في هذا الإطار، إطار الصياغة التي تحول بينهم وبين أن يقعوا في شباك هؤلاء، وأن يعرفوا ما هو الإسلام وما هي حقائقه وما هي أضرار هذا الذي يقعون فيه من الفتن التي تقودهم إلى تقتيل أهلهم رجالا ونساء، شيبا وشبابا وأطفالا، وهكذا. لا بد من الصياغة التربوية من الأساس إلى الجامعة في الإطار هذا من أجل هذه الحماية. وبارك الله فيكم.
His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah today sent cables of condolences to His Excellency the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, Joachim Gauck, His Majesty King Felipe VI of Spain, His Excellency the President of the French Republic, Francois Hollande, expressing sympathy for the victims of the airline crash in a remote snowy area of the French Alps. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah also sent cables of condolences to His Excellency the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, Joachim Gauck, His Majesty King Felipe VI of Spain, and His Excellency the President of the French Republic, Francois Hollande, expressing sympathy for the victims of the airline crash in a remote snowy area of the French Alps. His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent similar cables of condolences. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at Bayan Palace His Highness Sheikh Nasser Al Mohammed Al Ahmed Al Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince also received the head of the Central Agency for Information Technology, Salim Mathib Al-Uthayna. The Minister of Public Works and Minister of Electricity and Water, Ahmed Al-Jassar, was sworn in at the National Assembly session today as per Article 91 of the Constitution. The National Assembly also approved a request by the Minister of Justice and Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs, Yaqub Al-Sani, and after approval of the Chairman of the Parliamentary Committee for the Protection of Public Funds, Abdullah Treji, calling on the government to pass a resolution in 2 weeks to amend the mandate of the committee entrusted with following up public money cases. The National Assembly members also approved a motion that authorises the Assembly to take the necessary measures regarding the lack of seriousness on the government part to continue investigations for public fund cases. The House also approved in the first reading a draft law to amend some of the provisions of the Law No. 7 for the year 2010 regarding the establishment of the Capital Markets Authority and regulating the stock market activities. The National Assembly then approved the Military Service Law in its first reading and referred it to the Committee of Interior and Defence Affairs to consider possible amendments of the law before the second reading. The House also unanimously endorsed a proposal regarding child rights and decided to refer it to the government. National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al-Ghanim met today in his office with the former President of the Republic of Serbia, Boris Tadic, on the occasion of his visit to the country. During the meeting, the two sides discussed bilateral ties and means to enhance them in all domains, as well as the latest regional and international developments. National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al-Ghanim received at his office today the Minister of Health, Dr. Ali Al-Abedi, on the occasion of the Tuberculosis International Day. The Minister of Health was accompanied by the Assistant Under-Secretary for Public Health Affairs, Dr. Majd Al-Gattan, the Head of the Lung Rehabilitation Centre at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Fatma Saidi, the Head of the Tuberculosis Control Centre, Dr. Khulud Al-Hamdan, the Head of the Information Centre, Dr. Ghalia Al-Mteri, and Dr. Nazila Dwaysan. They presented to the National Assembly Speaker the Barcelona Declaration and briefed him, as well as other members of the National Assembly, on the declaration and the willingness of the Kuwait community to join the international community in eliminating this disease after the declaration was signed by a number of parliamentarians and its issuance on the 27th of October 2011. The First Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah met today with the Chairman of the Constitutional Council of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, Murad Medlesi, and his accompanying delegation on the occasion of his visit to the country. During the meeting, the two sides discussed the ways of consolidating relations between the two countries in all domains and topics of common concern. The meeting was attended by the Director of the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister's Office, Sheikh Dr. Ahmed Nasser Mohammed Al-Sabah, Kuwait's Ambassador to Algeria, Saud Faisal Al-Duwaish, the Deputy Director of the First Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister's Office, Saleh Salim Al-Lughani, and a number of senior officials at the Foreign Ministry. The First Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah met today with the Secretary General of the National Human Rights Committee in the State of Qatar, Maryam bint Abdullah Al-Atiyah, and her accompanying delegation on the occasion of her visit to the country. The meeting was attended by the Director of the Administrative and Financial Affairs Department, Ambassador Jamal Abdullah Al-Ghanim, the Director of the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister's Office, Sheikh Dr. Ahmed Nasser Mohammed Al-Sabah, the Deputy Director of the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister's Office, Saleh Salim Al-Lughani, and a number of senior officials at the Foreign Ministry. The First Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah met today with the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Iyad Amin Madani, on the occasion of his visit to the country. During the meeting, the two sides reviewed a host of issues of common concern, bilateral coordination, and exploring fresh prospects for boosting cooperation for the good of Muslim countries and the international community. The meeting was attended by the Director of the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister's Office, Sheikh Dr. Ahmed Nasser Mohammed Al-Sabah, the Director of the International Organizations Department, Ambassador Jassim Mbarak Limbarki, the Director of Protocol, Ambassador Dhari Ajran Al-Ajran, the Deputy Director of the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister's Office, Saleh Salim Al-Lughani, Kuwait's Consul General in Jeddah and Permanent Delegate to the OIC, Saleh Ali Sagoubi, and a number of senior officials at the Foreign Ministry. The Security Media Department at the Ministry of Interior said in a statement released today that in spite of its previous warnings that unlicensed gatherings and demonstrations would not be allowed and constitute a threat to the gathering people, safety of the population and compromise public order and security. They also interrupted businesses and people's work. Therefore, the Special Security Forces were compelled yesterday evening to deal with a small number of people who took out to the streets in an unauthorized demonstration which affected public order and security. They were dispersed by the security forces and a number of violators were apprehended. The Media Department in the Ministry of Interior urged all people to abide by the valid laws and regulations so that they would not be subjected to legal liability. Kuwait's representative at the Arab League, Ambassador Aziz al-Dehani, said the State of Kuwait had made several achievements at the Arab level during its chairmanship of the Arab Summit throughout the past year. Ambassador Dehani, who was speaking to reporters before the beginning of the new meeting of the Arab League at the chief delegates level, pointed out to the great efforts made by the State of Kuwait during its presidency of the Arab League, adding that fruitful political moves were conducted regarding the Arab causes, especially the Palestine issue. On the other hand, Kuwait's permanent representative hailed Egypt's hosting of the upcoming Arab Summit, adding that it reflects the role that Egypt plays as a joint Arab action leader. UN Resident Coordinator in Turkey, Kemal Malhotra, praised the approval of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmed al-Jaber al-Sabah, to host the third Donors Conference for the Syrian people by the end of this month. Speaking to Kuna, Malhotra said that His Highness the Emir is playing a decisive humanitarian role since the eruption of the Syrian crisis, which killed over 220,000 people and forced some 12.5 million people to be either internally displaced or living as refugees in neighbouring countries. The official said the UN would be offering a new approach for the March 31st International Pledging Conference for the Syrian people, which would focus on short-term humanitarian needs and long-term development requirements, ultimately aimed at addressing multifaceted problems caused by the conflict. Malhotra also conveyed messages to the governments through their embassies in Turkey, urging them to generously contribute to the conference. Iraq's Ministry of Defense said that the army's airstrikes and helicopter attacks against the so-called Islamic State militants continued in the strategic city of Tikrit. According to the ministry, these strikes inflicted heavy casualties on the IS, killing many of the terrorists stationed in the embattled northern city in Salahuddin province. Our correspondent in Baghdad, Wasim al-Bayati, has more details in the following report.
Baghdad hit by a series of car bombs, and the biggest one in Sadr city area, killed 8 people and injured more than 20. The conflict against so-called ISIS still results hundreds of deaths every month in other parts of Iraq and has displaced more than 2 million people. The Iraqi operation to take back Tikrit from so-called ISIS faced unexpected resistance from the militant, forced them to hold the advancing.
Yeah, I think need 7 days for the liberty Tikrit city and the near village around Tikrit. I think when you attend the Saraya Salam, work with counter-terrorist and Iraqi army and Popular Mobilization Unit to siege around Tikrit is good now. And Iraqi army have good plan for control the Tikrit, but I think face some problem such as the sniper from ISIS.
This attack came as Iraqi security forces and popular crowd tightened the siege on Islamic State militant in Tikrit. Iraqi officials still reject any international air support, saying they are able to liberate the town in minimum damage in the next few days. Ammar Karim, Kuwait State TV, Baghdad.
A Swiss proposal aiming at ending the salaries crisis in Gaza is moving towards progress. Meanwhile, a government delegation from Ramallah will visit Gaza soon to address problems and overcome obstacles of unity. More with Majd al-Wahidi from Gaza.
A delegation from Switzerland arrived in Gaza Strip on Monday to discuss the Swiss proposal on the situation in Gaza. The delegation has held separate meetings with several Palestinian factions and UN institutions based here. Hamas expressed some reservations over a number of provisions mentioned in the Swiss proposal. However, they agreed on general principles.
The
Swiss delegation offered a roadmap to address the problems of employees in Gaza. This is a positive start, and we have no problem with such a move. But there are some gaps, and we hope to overcome them to end the suffering of employees and implement the goals of the government of national unity.
The Swiss proposal offers a solution for Gaza employees' crisis by integrating the employees who were appointed after 2007 by the former government in the government services in order to include their salaries in Palestinian Authority's budget. Solving the government employees' crisis is one of the three objectives of the Palestinian Unity Government, in addition to ending the siege of Gaza and its reconstruction.
Hamas has welcomed the Swiss document with regard to civilian employees, but Hamas will not accept the Swiss document without resolving the issue of security employees, which has not been resolved within the Swiss document. The Palestinians are very much skeptical about the ability of the unity government to move forward on the two tracks, Palestinian reconciliation and the rebuilding and reconstruction of Gaza.
According to diplomatic sources, Prime Minister Rami al-Hamadallah will arrive in the coastal enclave within the next 24 hours. Hamas has welcomed his visit. The Prime Minister will discuss issues like reconstruction of Gaza, elections, easing of the siege, and national reconciliation. Observers believe the recent signs shown by Hamas over a ceasefire agreement with Israel and a Palestinian United Unity Government will help Gaza overcome its short and long-term crises. Majlou Haidi, Kuwait TV, Gaza.
Armed men have killed 13 passengers travelling on a bus towards southern Afghanistan, the latest attack to target civilians in the country's conflict. Today's killings in Wardak province, which lies close to the capital, Kabul, highlighted Afghanistan's fragile security situation as President Ashraf Ghani holds talks in Washington. As violence continues to escalate, President Ghani has asked the United States for flexibility as it pulls out its remaining 10,000 troops by the end of 2016. More on the following report by Nadia Ali.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani praised the U.S. for the commitment shown towards Afghanistan over the past 14 years during his first official visit to Washington. In a ceremony at the Pentagon, President Ghani paid tribute to U.S. soldiers who had fought in Afghanistan and thanked the U.S. for its support. Today, the U.S. and Afghan leaders laid the groundwork for new relations between the two countries, including plans to seek U.S. funding to maintain an Afghan security force of 352,000 and discussions about future U.S. troop levels as the war winds down. The session at Camp David, Maryland, included a number of U.S. and Afghan officials, including Secretary of State John Kerry, Defense Secretary Ash Carter, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, and Chief Executive Abdullah Abdullah. The talks were aimed at launching a U.S.-Afghan relationship strained by nearly 14 years of war and America's often testy relations with the former president Hamid Karzai. During the meeting, the U.S. agreed to seek funding through 2017 for an Afghan force of 352,000, a level the nation has yet to meet. U.S. administration officials said the Afghan government is trying to improve recruiting to make up for security forces who leave the service or simply abandon their jobs. They also agreed to require the Afghan government to complete specific reforms and meet other milestones in order to receive up to $800 million.
I'm also pleased to announce today a new initiative, a plan to create a new development partnership aligned with the Unity Government's reform agenda. This initiative reflects the strategic importance of the U.S.-Afghan relationship, and it recognizes a new era of cooperation between our governments. The partnership will promote Afghan self-reliance by using up to $800 million in U.S. aid to incentivize and measure Afghan-led reform and development activities and strengthen Afghan institutions, sustainability, and fiscal transparency, and give the new unity government more opportunity to lead its own development trajectory.
In another kind of support, a U.S. drone strike killed at least 9 Pakistani militants in Afghanistan's Nangarhar province early today, part of an intensifying drone campaign against Pakistani militants in Afghanistan. Today's drone strike was near the site of fierce fighting on the Afghanistan-Pakistan borders in recent days.
And moving to local financial news, the 3 main indices of the Kuwait Stock Exchange were mixed by the end of today's trading session, with the price index losing 17 points to settle at 6,408 points. The KSX 15 index, however, gained 1 point and reached the level of 1,056 points. The share of Al Dar National Real Estate Company was the top gainer of the day, while that of the Al Aqar Real Estate Company, company, suffered the biggest loss. For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. And to recap tonight's news, here are the headlines once again. His Highness the Emir receives members of the International Islamic Fiqh Academy participating in the 22nd session of the IIFA conference. The National Assembly approves a number of draft laws in its session, which witnessed the swearing in of the Minister of Public Works and Minister of Electricity today. The Ministry of Interior declares that a small number of people conducted an unauthorised rally yesterday evening, contrary to its previous warnings. And the UN resident coordinator in Turkey praises His Highness the Emir's approval to host the 3rd Donors Conference for the Syrian people. Thank you for joining us.